weird shit at like the twilight of like discovering like anime and like how you accessed it. Like one of my most like core memories is like going to this local what do you even call it? A rental store. Like a VHS movie rental store. Like not Blockbuster, like a local one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whoever worked there, like some of their employees were just really into anime. So they had like a huge anime section. Like they had X 1999, they had like all of Kenshin, they had like a bunch of stuff that was not on Adult Swim, basically, or Anime Unleashed Tech TV. And I remember going with my mom, and my mom would love to make small chat with people and tell her all about her funny little son that liked weird things. And this one of the employees, I have no idea how old she was. Maybe like, you know, to me like an adult, but probably like a college student.
Yeah.
And she like understood that I was interested and was like, you know, I can make you some DVDs with some subtitled anime if you're interested. Like I'll make you like a sampler, and
that's cool.
And then you can come back, and I'll make you more. And so she made me, like the next time we came in, she made me a DVD with Scried, Samurai Deeper Kyo, and Final Fantasy Unlimited.
Aww.
Oh, wow.
Three episodes each in subs. So this was my very first experience with subtitles. I thought when she said subtitles, it meant like the titles for the show, like the title of the episode. You know, I was like, oh, cool. Like, it's like dubbed in English, but the titles are also in English. I didn't understand it at all. And then I got it, and it was just Japanese with sub, which made me feel so cool. Like, I was like, I'm in the underground now.
Yeah, right. And, you made it to a deeper level.
Yeah, into my deeper Kyo.
Yeah.
And it was so, like, adult, too, at least to me at the time. And, you know, I loved them all because I was, you know, so impressionable. I've not watched any of them all the way through except for Final Fantasy Unlimited, which is like a strong 7 out of 10. Like, I love it, but it's also really weird.
Is that the one that's like a weird sequel to like Final Fantasy V or something? Hold on, I gotta
look. It's almost Kingdom Hearts-esque in the way that it's a sequel. Like it's physically a sequel.
I know there was Legend of the Crystals, which was an OVA.
That might be the one. Yeah,
I've seen that one too, but that one's more of like a standard fantasy anime, whereas Final Fantasy Unlimited is just an insane dimensional bizarre.
Yeah, I'm like looking at it, and it's like its release was like coinciding with the Spirits Within, which is hilarious. That's God. Oh man, yeah.
What a time!
When's the last time you guys saw Spirits Within, if you've seen it?
It's been like 5 years, like not that long.
Oh, not that long. I saw it in high school, so not to like let everyone know my specific ages. So I probably watched it in like 2006.
Yeah,
and I thought it was decent. I didn't feel like it was a Final Fantasy movie though. But
I always get distinctly sleepy when I watch it. Like it's like really
hard
dull.
To give it your full attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember it not being that like engaging.
Yeah, weirdly it's like a less politically and existentially loaded version of like whatever Mamoru Oshii was doing at the time.
Yeah,
like all of his weird like Jinro stuff.
Oh, I watched so many. I watched 2 live action and the Jinro Wolf Brigade movie. They're crazy. Yeah. That could be a whole podcast.
Yeah. It's very proto Garm Wars, if you will.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with that.
Garm Wars is fucking cracked. It's one of the craziest looking and most unintelligible films I've ever seen in my entire life.
It sounds right up there with the red spectacles.
Yeah. Okay, let's why don't we jump in?
And
start recording. I have Logic open. I'm ready to go. Hello and welcome to Human Insects. I'm Hazel.
And I'm Nicky.
And we are here with a very special guest, our dear friend William.
Hello.
What's up?
I never wanted to, the problem with having guests on is that I never want to be like, you're from
right
this and this.
Yeah.
Like, it feels presumptuous.
Yeah, like you're podcasting with like a bunch of cue cards like in your hand.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I certainly don't mind.
Well, in that case, you are. I don't know why I'm phrasing it like I'm telling you. We're here with William from the band Kara's Walk Home. There we go. I did it. I did the thing. Woo!
You guys released that record like around springtime. I want to say it's been a few months.
Spring.
Yeah, late.
It was in July. I really wanted it to be like mid-spring because I was like, this has to be a spring album, but it is what it is. The albums come out when they can.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's kind of rough. I actually think, God, we passed like the 4-year anniversary of the last like Pedalfold EP. I think.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know, it's weird. And that one, I remember like wanting it to come out. Like, I don't know, much earlier than that. Much earlier. That one was a pain to get out. So I empathize. I feel you. It's like it just kind of, whenever it's ready, it's ready.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of one of the things about like being in a band that isn't made up of people in their late teens and really early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's like just always been the background theme of this band. It's just, I feel so, or how to say it, like we all have lives and they get in the way, and and I'm not interested in like, or I'm more willing to suspend the band than to replace members, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So things just take time.
Yeah, it's I think I'm in also a similar spot because I just like the like more important than musical ability to me for sure is like just the idea that I gel and agree with these people like creatively, you know.
Same.
So like So losing that and then getting in some other guy that like might be like super good and super creative or whatever, but just like doesn't like work with us, like it'd just be a total headache. And
exactly. Yeah, that's always been how we operated the band. So we can get into that more if you have specific questions. But it's always been about like it started off as like my thing, but as the band went, it was like, even if I was still writing the songs, it felt like this, like Kara's Walk Home is these people, and like, if they leave, then that's the band, that's it,
Right.
Yeah, I think especially like, I imagine that it's one of those things where when you're self-producing, or rather, it's not that I imagine, I know this from experience. When you're self-producing, I think that kind of further kind of makes a band like a little bit of a cocoon, because you're kind of all interfacing with each other as a unit in the writing, in the recording, in the playing shows, all of it.
Yeah, and so like even if like I come up with the chords and the melodies for the songs, I still feel like so much of like the experience of being with those people comes into the songs that I write, like into like what I want those songs to be about, and like and things like that. And then we also flesh them out like at practice and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned questions that we might have, but I actually don't tend to come prepared with any. So
okay, yeah. This is like the first time I've been able to talk to anyone on a recording about the album. So
Yeah,
Right.
I guess
I've got
that's
plenty
true.
to say.
So yeah. I guess if you'd like, then I would love if you just want to kind of talk about the stuff about it that you've been wanting to say, because this is like the kind of funny thing about being like an artist with like a social media platform, is it feels like at any point you could just like make a Twitter thread or whatever about the record. But like
there's no pageantry
never really
to
feels
that.
like right, exactly, like unless it's like the 1-year anniversary or whatever, and then by that point like I've already forgotten most of the shit that I was thinking about when I was writing
or I'm like more obsessed with something else by that point,
right?
and, like,
yeah
like I just feel like presentation is important, and I don't like to give away too much on Twitter. Twitter is just so
it feels disposable, doesn't it? Like
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I tend to use Twitter just to say this is out, or here's a song I like, and that's about it.
Yeah. Like I've been really struggling with that personally, is like trying to find like creative avenues that don't involve Twitter so much, and it's like kind of tough and everything because I don't want to just do stuff on Twitter. You know, I've played around with like doing writing and stuff, and I was like, well, I just don't like it. Like this would probably be like read more if I did a tweet thread, but that feels like I'm throwing it away.
Right. Yeah. Like it doesn't really last.
Yeah.
Like you don't really know how to go and search up like a Twitter thread you really like, because there's no headline.
Yeah.
It's certainly something I admire about Hazel's videos, because I feel like I have so many thoughts about so many things, but I never like package them together and present them. And I think like not that video essays is the only way. It's one way, but like my girlfriend and I have talked at length over the years about how much like how good a good blog post can be, you know?
Yeah.
Like just a place where something sits can be searched for and found, and you can read it and get like a detailed insight in someone's opinion. Like it's nice. And I would prefer to present my thoughts that way, or in a podcast or something. Or like, you know, I would love it if I could, you know, edit my thoughts together more cleanly, but at the very least a podcast feels more like more of a permanent thing, even if very few people listen to it, and I like that about it.
Yeah. Something I really appreciate about doing podcasts is that, like, kind of what you said, like the actual act of tying all of your thoughts together and finding a way to structure them is by far the hardest part of writing a script. It's kind of filling the glue between all the pieces that kind of come naturally, just as being somebody who has reactions to art. And I think a podcast is really useful for me because I don't feel that obligation to tie everything together. Like, it's okay if things come out in a way that seems disjointed, because that's just kind of the nature of speaking without a script.
I've also found podcasts super useful as just like a weird like proving ground for like a take on something.
It's a good exploratory. I do another podcast called Discuss All Monsters, or me and my friend Wyatt, we talk about a bunch of Toho monster movies and stuff, mostly the Godzilla ones. And we kind of go back and forth on some of these movies. And sometimes I walk into an episode of that show not really knowing where I settle on a movie. And then we just sit there and like go back and forth and kind of like just hash out like our opinions on it or whatever, and then I feel like I come away with like a diamond
definitely.
It feels like something that I actually hammered out over the course of like an hour and a half, and you can just listen to that happen. So that's kind of like a fun like use for that and everything too, because now whenever someone asks me about like the 1991 Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, I have like a really good like like summation of like what that movie is and stuff, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I'm so glad to have you on. Like the record is like really great, and I was really impressed with it whenever I first heard it. I mean, I've been impressed with the
Thank
band
you.
for like a while. Like I think Hazel sent me Goodbye to This and That whenever that was just a single like a few years ago.
Right.
And that song, like ever since I've been like, okay, I'm paying attention. I have to know what's next, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah. I guess for listeners, I've been a fan of Kara's Walk Home since I heard you play June like a week after it got released in a weird garage at a house in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you've basically known my music since it was a little pea, like a little seed or a sprout. Like June, I don't even know if we were called Kara's Walk Home yet when we put June
I think it
out.
was a few weeks out from the name change, because I remember seeing that and going, oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was such an interesting time in my like musical journey. Like,
yeah,
I like, I guess just to sum it up, because I think it's kind of funny. Like, when I first got into music, more or less, I was like in 8th grade, and I got really into Bad Religion, and I felt like I was too good for like Blink-182, not punk enough for me. But you know, very shortly after, I never was really like, I listened to Bad Religion and that was it as far as punk goes. And then I just listened to a bunch of indie stuff in high school, like The Strokes and Isley and whatnot, and power metal, of course. And in college, I was really into folk music for a long time. And so there was just this huge like gap in time where like I only played acoustic guitar fingerstyle. I didn't really listen to rock music much at all. Like I loved Beirut and Iron and Wine and stuff like that. And then like a couple years before June came out, my sister took me to a Joyce Manor show, and AJJ was also playing. And that was sort of the in-betweener, like a folk punk band, getting me from folk to punk. And I saw Joyce Manor, and I was like, that was way too loud. My ears hurt. But then like a couple weeks later, I kept coming back to it, and my life changed, and I was like, I have to do a pop punk band. And then I learned to play with a pick, and a couple years later, June. I think I was also around that time I found Gingnang Boyz, which I should not neglect to mention.
Yeah,
oh, right.
Yeah, that's the great life changer for so many musicians.
Yeah, even now they're like my pinnacle. Like I'm always chasing after that.
Yeah,
that mountain.
Yeah. I find that I kind of went through phases with them where I thought I was kind of tired of them and their shtick, and then I realized that I was wrong and that their music is eternal and will always be eternal.
Yeah, for me, it's almost been more like a gradual incline. Like the first time I heard them was definitely like life changing.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is kind of too heavy for me. Like I wasn't ready for it yet.
Yeah.
Like when I heard School Kill the first time, I was like, this is a little too heavy. Like the first song I heard was Boys on the Run, which is not quite as heavy, but you know, it still has some of that intensity. And so it was like this in between. And then but over the years, like I've enjoyed more and more of their heavy stuff. And so, like it used to be, I feel like both of their breakout albums, or not breakout, debut albums, like the first half is kind of the like heavier shit, and then the second half is the sort of like, not quite ballads, but a little more just less heavy, you know, for what it's worth. Not like exclusively, but that's more or less the.
Yeah, I think it skews like a little bit less like rambunctious.
Yeah, there's less hardcore influence, I'd say, in the second halves.
It feels like it's like influenced by like how a live set would be structured, right? Where they're like kind of bringing it home with encore after encore of like these like sing-along songs or whatever at the end.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I'm just saying, but like you would start with like all the crazy shit and stuff just to get people really fired up.
Yeah, that makes sense, and they really do play the sets that way.
yeah.
But like, so at first I was like, I started it as a second half album of the album guy, and now I'm like, and over the years, just more and more of those like early tracks, like the albums are just so huge. It's like I couldn't digest them. It's taken me 10 years to digest just these two albums, and so I feel
I've still only listened to the one that isn't the one with baby on it.
Door.
I've only listened to that record like a few times, and I was like still in high school. Like that one record is so huge. It's so monolithic that I felt like it was all I needed.
Yeah, I felt that way for a long time. Like I only listened to the one with the girl on the cover. I'm not gonna try to say the name, but I mainly only listened to that one. That one's got like Baby, School Kill, Kake Nukete Seishun, which is the one with Yuki on it.
Yeah.
And like and I didn't listen to Door at all really, but like just over the years, usually what happens is like I like once a year I just need what only Gingnang Boyz can give. And then I'm like, and I just put it on and I find a new song to love, even like after so long of listening to them.
Yeah.
I'm like relatively kind of fresh to the Gingnang Boyz actually. I feel like I listened to a million bands around like that orbited Gingnang Boyz and stuff before I actually hit Gingnang Boyz, and that was, I don't know when it was. I mean, it was semi recently, definitely after like Burned In started being a thing. But it's definitely been a bit now. And there, like, I think I'm still in that stage now where like I mainly just pick out certain songs that are like, oh, this song fucking slams. And so I actually really like a few from their like newest record that's on Spotify, their 2020 record. With Do You Like Me, and then like School Pill
fucking rules.
School Pill is like insane. That chorus is like legitimately like, oh fuck, like I want to write like 10 fucking thousand songs like that right now. It's so cool.
And then I think right after is Otona Zenmetsu, which is a redo of one of their Going Steady songs, and it's so fucking awesome. Like just the way it's this like slow strum like howl until it gets to the chorus, like halfway through the song, and then it's just this like kind of desperate sing along chorus, and it. I mean, I could say so much about that.
I've always had a really hard time pinning down their influence on other Japanese indie rock bands because they feel so simultaneously monolithic, but also like they're kind of off in their own world.
There's a certain strain that you can definitely trace. Like, there's a few bands I know that are absolutely influenced. Like, I think maybe one of the earliest ones I found was called fujirokyu kako kari. I always feel embarrassed to roll my L's, but
I'm always in the same boat. I have it's that and deciding whether or not I should use last name first or not. And videos are like my two biggest like. Like, I don't know.
I know, but
I always got to make the snap judgment.
It's like,
on the spot.
in one of the Cares Walk Home songs, when we say karaoke, I was like, this is fucking me up. How should I pronounce this?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like, I don't want to be cringe, but I also know the, like, source pronunciation.
Yeah.
It's like that's actually just how it's said, though. Yeah, so it's like, it's weird.
But, like, I just want to name drop some of these bands for the listeners, because
that's basically half this show. That's just what this podcast is half the time.
Yeah.
And
I
just think I love gingnang boys, and I love all of these bands that are influenced by them. So I want people to know, like, fujirokyu for sure. They had a song in what's that Trigger show? It's like short show.
Luluco?
The Space Patrol Luluco Open.
Straight up, just a guess on that one. I didn't even know. It's
fujirokyu. Wow. Well, you got it. But they're awesome. Definitely influenced, especially their first album. And then there's like there's this band that I really love that I don't know anyone else who listens to, called Boku no letepathies. Not the most easy to understand name, because it's like telepathy, but they switched the first two syllables. Boku no letepathy.
These are all going to be in the show notes.
Yeah, please. So, and I can link you like some good videos.
Yeah.
They're like really good. Influenced me a lot. I found them in like 2015 maybe. Who else?
Well, there's that band that you sent me recently.
Yeah, Tokyo Shoki Shoudo is absolutely like 100%. I've read interviews, so it's like confirmed. But you can tell just from how it's mixed.
Yeah.
And they're like one of my most like thrilling musical discoveries of the last year. There's also another band I found recently called Eyes, I''S, who are fronted by this like former idol named Ano, and she just she does like relatively normal idol music too, but then she started this band called Eyes that's I think is probably influenced by them. I think Bish and Bis were both probably very influenced by Gingnang Boys, the idol groups.
Yeah.
And like there's one other important one I wanted to name. I'm trying to remember. Dotsui tarunen, aka Sushi Bomber. They're a really weird band because they've got like a super eclectic and impenetrable discography. Like they've got like some of their songs are like hip hop influence, like very R&B, and then other songs will just be this like youth punk, like wild shit. And they're really good, very weird. And then the last one I want to name is Oomori Seiko, definitely influenced.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
And then I think there's like proto Gingnang Boys bands like Eastern Youth,
right,
which probably
definitely
influenced. Like, and then there's that stuff too, like Eastern Youth and Number Girl. I feel like kind of set the tone for bands, and the Blue Hearts for bands like Gingnang Boys. But,
I think Blue Hearts is one of those bands where like they're so ever present that like the idea of listening to Japanese rock music, especially like punk tinged Japanese indie rock, and not knowing about the Blue Hearts feels just like utterly wrong.
I feel like, I don't know if it's true or not, and I'd like to research this, but I just get the feeling that the way that guy sings did so much for Japanese punk. Like his singing fucking rules. And I feel like the singing, that's like one of the main things that attracts me to Japanese punk. That kind of is just very different from American punk. At least like pop punk is just that, like, it's like rough, but it's not put on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
It's not like, I don't know, this not put on is a really good way to describe that. And
like there's a kind of emotiveness to it that belies almost an incapability to sing those words any other way.
And that's always been like the biggest draw to me for vocals. Like, maybe this is a good place to talk about it since it's related to Kara's Walk Home, but and this is sort of a tangent away, so apologies if you need to pull it back on track. But like, obviously Gingnang Boyz and Eastern Youth, huge vocal influences for me. I mean, maybe obvious. It feels obvious to me, but who knows?
Yeah.
But the source for my vocals was this band called Okervill River. Have you ever heard of them?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I heard about them because of your Last FM scrobbles.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Shout out Last FM. I'd reference them on the new album too, so that's kind of a nice tie-in on what's the last song called? Dragon Bone Smasher.
Yeah.
I reference Blinking Crib, which is a Okervill River song that was like a big, just one of my favorite songs as a college student. And the thing about his vocals, especially in like their early albums, the first time I heard it, I was like a freshman in college, and I was like, these vocals are bad, but I love it. And that was just a huge moment for me. Like there's just some element, like some quality to these vocals that nothing else has really given me before. And what it was is that it wasn't necessarily that he was a good or bad singer. It's that it was just completely unadorned. It was just like his straight speaking voice put to melody. And like when the note was too high, his voice would break. And there's just this like something about that I just loved. And that's, I think a very common thing in emo now, but at the time it was like my first exposure to that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think that for a lot of people who were even a little younger than Nicky and I think probably Brave Little Abacus, where emo is concerned, is probably where a lot of people first came up against that sort of thing. But I've always felt like that was a huge misnomer, because I think Adam is a really incredible vocalist.
Yeah.
I think that's true about a lot of people who sing in this style. Not to put myself on self-defense,
right?
Either. Like, I'm not trying to defend my voice, but like if people who sing this way wanted to sound like they could go on Glee, then they would put the effort in to do so, right?
Yeah.
It's just not the goal. It's like distortion. It's like criticizing a guitar tone because it has overdrive on it, right?
Right.
It's like an intended effect. And like, I feel like anyone who's been to karaoke with people who Adam's vocals are great, and it's clear that it's like that kind of stuff. It's like intentional. It takes effort, and like there's a skill to it, and having that natural kind of voice, and still selling it.
Yeah, definitely. And I can also confirm that it's really hard. Like when I was working on singing on my material before, just logistically, I kind of had to give that up.
Yeah.
It is extremely difficult to find that right balance between like kind of being a little all over the place while still actually conveying a melody to people.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, you grow a muscle for it, I think, eventually. But like, I mean, I've always been a big proponent, like my like number one like singing mantra or whatever is always been that like I value like an idiosyncratic or like characterful voice over like technical ability or know-how or whatever. Like like if there's like a sense of honesty that I get from the performance, that trumps everything, it's always cool like whenever it's like like a really technically proficient voice and like I'm listening to I can listen to music like that or whatever, but I just like that honesty in like a vocal performance and just providing a voice to this instrumental in like telling a story or like extrapolating like an idea from yourself. That is always like way cooler and way more just what I'm looking for whenever I listen to music.
Yeah, there was this on that note, like it's like that, you know, for lack of a better word, it's like that human element of the performance. And I was listening to an interview with the Bish members.
Yeah.
And they have a song called Spark, which is like they straight up lifted some melody from this Eastern Youth song called Yoake no Uta, which is like an incredible song, like one of my all-time favorites. And I immediately caught that. And one time I was just looking up Bish interviews because I was just practicing translating, and I found one where they're talking about how that song influenced the Bish song, which in itself is very fun for me. But they talk about Eastern Youth and they describe it as and I'm very amateur with my Japanese skills, so by no means is this like a I'm not claiming to have translated it accurately, but they use this word to describe their music, which is dorokusai, which literally means like dirt stenched. And I don't know exactly the implication of it, because like I said, I'm very amateur, and I'm certainly not trying to be like, it's this special word, this special word, like, you know, like kokoro means heart or whatever. Like, I'm not saying that. It's just like, I'm just saying they described their music as like kind of like, you know, it has the stench of mud and dirt on it.
Yeah. And Chisho describes it as being unrefined or uncouth, as other synonyms.
That's right. Yeah. And I felt like yeah, that's like the probably more accurate meaning of it, but it's fun to know the like literal meaning behind the words. And I just thought that was like a fun way to describe them, and it felt like it's like they get it, you know? It's like that uncouth aspect of it is part of the appeal, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I on that note, I also really like how much direct reference plays a part in a lot of those bands. Like I forget which Going Steady song it is, where the bridge is literally just like country road.
Yeah, it's let me check. I can find it very quickly because I know which one it is, but I don't know if I can read the title. But it's like the second and third on there on Sakura no Uda. Is it Tokyo Shonen? I think
it is. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I love that. The first time I heard that, I was like, holy shit, this is the best version of Country Road I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah,
and Gingnang Boyz does that so much. I love when they just pull in that fucking Disney song. You know the one?
Oh shit.
When You Wish Upon a Star. I don't know which song it is.
Yeah.
And then there's another one where they grab the melody from some Christmas song. Some like classic Christmas song. You know that song?
Yeah. That's my favorite Going Steady song. The one where they use that.
Is that the Night on Galactic Railroad?
What the oh my god, yeah, hold on. What is that melody? I always think it's Auld Lang Syne, but it's not.
No, Auld Lang Syne is an awesome song though. I would love to just sneak that in a Kara's Walk Home song or whatever I do next.
I was in a band once that was planning to do that, but we never actually made an album, so it never happened.
I used to do it sometimes, like pre-Kara's Walk Home when I was doing a lot of folk stuff. I used to just like grab classic folk numbers and just throw them in, but I never like produced the song officially with that.
I always have kind of a difficult relationship with doing that because it's a fine line to convey to someone that you're borrowing something like that as a direct quotation, without it feeling just kind of like ethically weird in other ways.
It's kind of like
obviously with a folk song or like a piece of classical music, like it's so established in the public consciousness and in the public domain, more importantly.
I think it's different
easier to swing that, but
it's different if you're grabbing something that like no one's heard.
Right. Exactly.
Especially if you're famous. I think like it gets a little more like when you're like a nobody band on some level. It's like, well,
I don't think I've actually shared this on the podcast, but I wrote a song before my channel blew up, and then resultingly my music got more popular, that had a direct sample from an artist that at the time was bigger and more popular than me. And I don't mean to imply that I'm like hot shit at all or anything like that, but like I had a moment of reflection where I was like, I'm making a living in part based on my music, and I don't think this person whose music I want to quote is. And like that feels kind of like ethically weird. Like I thought for a while like I could reach out and say like, hey, can we work something out? But like every which way I tried to conceptualize making that happen felt kind of weird and like condescending, and it just kind of stopped sitting right with me. So I had to replace it.
On the other side of it, though, I feel like within, not to be corny about it, but like within the capitalist system where we have to make profit, this sort of sharing gets more morally gray than it otherwise might be. But I think like there's a grand history of like folk music of people just like grabbing each other's melodies, and I feel like the world is richer for it. But at the same time, we do have to be considerate of like, you know, like if you're Taylor Swift and you steal a Kara's Walk Home melody, like that's a little bit fucked up. That's not going to happen, of course. Just an example.
I feel like if something like that on that scale happened to me, I think it would probably be too funny for me to get mad about it.
I would love it. So I mean, it's my dream, honestly. Like not necessarily to be stolen from, but I'm like, why can't I get a little bit of that Bob Dylan treatment? Like where like they take a song from this guy with a kind of fucked up voice and make a famous pop staple.
Make like
not claiming
make like a quote unquote regular song, and it's just like, oh yeah, now it's a hit or whatever.
Not claiming I'm in any way like as important as Bob Dylan, if he wasn't covered. I'm just saying like it would be fun.
I definitely did kind of accidentally a little bit steal a melody from one of your songs, though.
You're welcome to it.
That was embarrassing because that time it was on accident. It's the song that you played on, actually. The song from that band that I never actually got off the ground. The one that you did trumpet for that made it onto my like rarities collection.
Which part?
There's like a middle section where I totally didn't even realize that I was directly pulling from Goodbye to This and That. The part where you talk about the clogged toilet, like the melody there and the way the chords are paced is very similar. And I was like, oh my God, that was completely unintentional.
That's funny. Well, you know what? It kind of goes both ways, because I feel like, I just love that song, and I think a different part in the middle of the song, where the trumpet comes in. Where like the beat kind of picks up, and it's like a 4-5-1 progression. It's like I didn't copy it, but I had a lot of trouble not copying it on reintroduction
that
letter.
Was the part that I copied from you.
Okay, well, awesome. That's so funny. I was like, wow, this melody sure is great. But wait, can I tell a funny story related to that lyric? The
please.
Toilet clog part.
Yeah.
I never thought much about that line at all. It was just like based on real life, where like, you know, I was living with someone, and it was like 2 a.m. and the toilet got clogged, and I got woken up, and I was grumpy about it, and I felt like really guilty about it later. Like I should just I should just be nice and help with the toilet. And, you know, that's partially what that song is about, right? It's like, it's about like being embarrassed about like, you know, those sorts of like small ways you mistreat people that add up and trying to move past it. And so that line was just, or like, you know, trying to change, but also not like let your guilt about those things prevent you from moving forward, etc. Not to over explain the theme, but like
that's actually really interesting because I always took it as like when you're kind of in the heat of like a difficult emotional relationship with somebody, sometimes things that are really mundane and really stupid wind up cropping up that wind up kind of feeling like unnecessarily heightened alongside it.
I mean,
so like that detail being something that came up in that context was kind of how I always took it. So it's cool to hear.
You're basically on the right track. Like I feel like, you know, I think when you try to describe the theme of a song, you're never quite like, there's a reason it's a song, right? Like it's got these subtleties to it. But yeah, you know, it's a fictional story about these two characters who like have this strained relationship, and but that line again, it was just like I wasn't thinking much about toilets or anything. And when Look a Rainbow came out, I made the mistake of checking Rate Your Music a lot to see what people are saying.
No.
And I don't do this much. Like I'm not a name searcher really. I like to just let it go.
Yeah.
Like I never went and looked at what people were saying about our first album. And the only reason I was even aware of it is because one of my friends was like, hey, did you know people are saying nice things about you on there, about your first album? And so I was like, that's nice, but I'm not going to look. And then when the new album came out, I was so proud of it, you know? I was like, surely people are gonna be so hyped for this. And then, and there was plenty of nice comments, so I'm not pressed about that, but I clicked on, there's this feature on that website where you can make lists of albums that you're like going through or whatever, and people can put little like blurbs about it.
Yeah.
And I clicked on one. It'll tell you like if your band is referenced in it or any given band. And I clicked on it, and someone thought that line about the toilet was so disgusting. And I was like, what? Like that, like why are you thinking about it like that? Like
it's been about 10 years since we lived on that same street. I braced myself for insults, but all you said was just you left your bag by the front door. The last thing I said was nice try, maybe next time. You just shook your head, and I think what you meant was I really won't miss you at all. So you clog the toilet, and I'll try my best to twist down.
So this is actually something interesting that I don't really know if people who are like really keyed into emo and who are familiar with your band, like I think something that makes Kara's Walk Home stand out is that your songs are generally more about telling stories that might be influenced by or inspired by reality, but that are still like kind of fictional at the end of the day. I think that's something a lot of like emo bands almost like don't even consider doing, because it's a genre that's inherently so centered around emotional like volatility, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
like there's this one-to-one.
I always thought that was right. Yeah. I always thought that was something that made your band stand out, and that felt kind of all the more special as a result.
Well, thank you. It's definitely something I've, it was always, I don't know if it necessarily started out extremely intentional, but my influences lyrically, like probably my two biggest influences are Belle and Sebastian, and If You're Feeling Sinister specifically, and even more specifically that song, If You're Feeling Sinister, and also Hop Along, the band.
Yeah.
And they're
one of my favorites as well.
They're both, like, they do that, and I feel like, Hop Along especially, I feel like Francis is just like an unbelievable storyteller and also poet, but a literal poet, not so much a metaphorical poet. Their writing is very literal, not completely, but I feel that they capture specific moments and specific feelings so well while still being emotionally evocative, because there's this danger with being specific where it can feel irrelevant, but then I don't like to be too broad either, because otherwise I don't feel like I'm really saying anything, or I mean, I don't know, I haven't thought about that much. I just like the visceral feeling of depicting something that feels real.
Yeah, definitely. I think that I struggled for a while after I finished writing my first full-length record, because I had kind of drained myself of things about myself that I felt like writing about.
I can talk about that too, for sure.
Yeah. So when it came time to start working on new material, lyrics started coming to me a lot harder, until I kind of thought about bands like yours and like Hop Along and even just like the Mountain Goats, which are kind of a textbook example.
Mountain Goats as well, big influence lyrically.
Yeah. And just kind of thinking about how evocative just sort of setting a stage can be emotionally when paired with the right words and melody. And kind of thinking about that and thinking about the kinds of stories that I like being told in song, and the kinds of things that feel good to sing and to sing along to, even if I'm not actually singing them. That was kind of what propelled me to kind of finally recenter and figure out where my priorities lied musically.
I had a similar experience, even though I think if you analyze it, the amount of fiction on our first album is pretty similar to our new album. But I feel when I was writing that first album, it's that like kind of everyone's got one novel in them syndrome. Right? You're taking all of your experiences from your whole life and sort of pouring them in. I was also in a much more emotionally difficult state at that time. Like my career prospects were very poor. I had so much debt. Like I was sharing a studio, and I'm not saying that, I'm not making the statement that like being in despair is required for making music. But for me at that time, I had so much material to pull from that felt relatively easy to sing about. Like, even then, writing a song like Bad Feelings, which is probably the most literal song on that album, felt kind of embarrassing. And all the way up until release, I wanted to rewrite it as something more fictional. But
interesting. Right. I see. Yeah, I see what you mean about the kind of difference in where the fictionality was coming from between the first and second full length.
And
that's interesting.
Like, I think a song like Star Kids Home is pretty kind of precursor to Look a Rainbow in certain ways, in terms of like kind of stretching the limits of what I'm capable of taking the position of as a narrator. But Yeah, because American soccer is fictional, but is it really?
Right.
It's very much a thing I can understand, having been through. Like, I played soccer, but I didn't have a friend named Johnny. I studied flashcards though when the sun was setting, and so there's elements of truth in that, of course, and it's very close to real life, but it is not me saying about literal. In my mind, it is a fiction, even if it's probably very much nonfiction. Whereas the song like Star Kid's Home is completely fictional. And I guess this is something I did want to talk about, all these months, is that I feel like when you're writing these fictional scenarios, I think the hardest part for me is like understanding sort of the bounds of what's appropriate to write about, or what you're even capable of writing about. Like many of a lot of the songs, I almost feel like, who am I to write about this? But I also feel that creates, like, kind of pushing those limits creates interesting fiction. So it's hard to say, I can't make like a definitive statement about it. Right? Like, for example, Star Kid's Home is about an abandoned child and the mother who abandoned that child. And I've never been in either of those situations. And then similarly on the new album, a lot of those songs, like Goodbye to This and That and You, Reintroduction Letter, Gauge Means Nothing, In the Car, are all about the same characters, which is about like a strange mother-daughter relationship where like the mother is like in the crisis about living her whole life without being able to do anything that she wanted to do with it, and then the daughter is like taking the brunt of these negative emotions that come out because of her mom's like emotional conflict. And like there are elements of those characters that I can relate to, which is why I wrote about them. It's like the sense, like the mother is like, the aspect I can relate to is the sense of getting older without like feeling you've done what you wanted with your life. And, that's always sort of been a theme in my music, because I just feel like there's so much youth-oriented music. I find it to be an interesting topic to contemplate.
Yeah, definitely.
And then,
and that's certainly another thing that I think makes your music especially distinct and important within the kind of broader landscape that I think the band sort of gets associated with.
Well, thank you. I mean, I agree, not in the sense of patting my ass about it, just in the sense of like it literally being true.
Yeah.
And it's I guess just to finish my point, it's like there are these aspects of the characters I can relate to. Like the mother, like I said, the daughter is the sense of like, dreams, even the idea of having a dream, being crushed by your circumstances, and being content to simply, like, your biggest dream is to just have a normal life where you're safe, right? And that's where I can relate to that character. But the literal relationship of these characters is not something I can relate to. So there's always this question of like, am I even capable of depicting these characters realistically?
Yeah.
I think that the thing about sitting down to write a story is that I think it invariably comes from somewhere, even if that somewhere is sort of wanting to understand a position that you don't fully, or any number of reasons. And I think that oftentimes, like, I think the difficulty of something like that is that I think it kind of inherently calls into question, like, how and why we as a species are capable of writing anything that is an autobiography.
Right.
And I think especially within music where it is kind of expected that you're writing about your own experiences, or that you're writing about something that you specifically feel really strongly about communicating to an audience. Like, I think it's kind of extra difficult in that realm. Just because like it's kind of like not normal almost.
Right.
So how we think about music.
It stands out in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I not to pontificate too much, and you know, any reflections you have about this, I'm certainly interested in. But I think that like when I was younger, I think I felt kind of constricted by the desire to like always write ethically. And while I don't think it's foolish, I definitely don't think it's foolish to consider that stuff, you know? But at the same time, and this isn't necessarily in opposition to that either, but when you like don't really understand, when you're young, you don't really understand what that really means, like to write ethically. Right. You end up like limiting yourself in unnecessary ways, and then I would like push myself into this space where I felt like, well, I couldn't really write anything that wasn't like directly autobio. And I think that like
it's funny hearing you say this, because I feel like I'm almost having flashbacks to us commiserating about this when it was something that, because I definitely felt that as well once upon a time. I feel like I recall us commiserating about that way back.
We
kind
probably
of having
did
the
talk
same sort
about
of moral
it.
dilemma.
Yeah, and I think like, you know, I always had the dilemma about it, but I think when you're younger, you don't have the kind of intellectual confidence to realize your doubts as like a valid position. And I guess just the point I'm trying to say is that like, I don't think I was wrong to like be caught up in like the ethics of like your writing. I think that on some level, like reaching to the limit of what you're capable or like what your experiences are, and like going past it, even if you mess up a little bit, I think is like a valuable thing for as a creator and for art in general. Like art kind of has to exist in this place where there's the potential to fuck it up, right? And then you mess up and you reflect on it, right? It's like that cycle. Yeah. Anyway, I'll get off my podium.
Oh, no, not at all. No, I think you're dead on about that. I think that like, you know, I think it kind of goes in tandem with that kind of conflict and dilemma that every artist invariably has to come to terms with, of just like acknowledging that it's out of your hands once it's out in the world.
Yeah, and I just, the older I get, the more sympathy I have for like messy creative work.
Yeah.
You know, like stuff that really would have kind of, I'm trying to think of a specific example.
Nicky, are you thinking of the same example I'm thinking of?
Let's hear it.
You also thinking about Is a Real Boy?
Oh yeah, Is a Real Boy.
That's a great example. Yes, because I got very into that this year.
Yeah.
For the first time.
Yeah,
that was a really like life-altering record for me that like continued to kind of nag at the back of my brain of like how does one appropriately approach both the fact that somebody made this record, and also like how do you approach listening to it from like the right perspective, basically.
That one's a real head turner kind of for me. And so just because it's just like, I don't know. Also like the point in time where I got into it like the most, or where like first like extremely clicked for me, was also at a point like I was like, not to say I was going through anything like similar to what Max Bemis is going through, but it was like I was like at probably my lowest then, and angriest, and like most like emotionally like taut or whatever. So I don't know, it's like I was also like kind of prone to indulging in like a lot of my more like negative aspects of my personality and stuff. So like that album, I don't know, it's kind of like it's kind of weird. Like there's a whole lot of like stuff about it where I don't know, it's I don't know, like I feel like there's definitely like a right and wrong way to take it, almost. Like I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
I feel like for me, it's like this. It's like appreciating not necessarily for what it literally is or literally saying, and more for the experience that birthed that art. You know, it's like, or it's like I don't need every piece of art to be like morally clean in order to find some value in it. And if it's like too far for other people, that's not for me to like tell them, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't know, that's something I've been thinking about as well, because like I've been doing some episodes of podcasts and stuff about movies that kind of cross certain lines, and that's definitely something I have to keep like kind of returning to, is that like literally like no one no one will, like, you know, or should like hold it against you that like if something is just like, I'm just not gonna, you know, go here with this, you know, I don't know.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think there's just this sense of I feel more. I had the words a second ago, but it's like enjoying something as a piece of art doesn't necessarily like. I mean, I guess it's just simply the idea that you can enjoy something with its flaws without necessarily defending those flaws, you know, or just seeing them as like, you know, a failed experiment, but still part of something that is valuable, or even if it's not like a failed experiment, because there's certainly bad things that, or like weird shit that people do on purpose, but like,
I think that this is kind of like one of the fundamental problems that I invariably wind up asking myself almost every time I make a video, because I can't pick a topic that isn't at least a little bit fraught in some way.
Well, yeah, that's
for whatever
something
reason.
that I really love about your videos, though. It was like,
thank you.
This sense of like your video about what's the manga with the title of the mom. Like like I'm already there with you. Like you know, with the you know, overall arching message of the video, or like idea of the video, right? And I can't. I feel like that video explains it better than I could now. You know, it's just
I don't even remember what I said in that video.
I'm just laughing so hard because I'm thinking about that fucking that message.
Right.
You got.
Yeah. That'll come up on my next Q&A. That video has cast like a weird shadow over me that I kind of love. Like,
it's really
I think
funny.
I could very easily be tired of the weird mommy fucker manga being my claim to fame, but I think it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the thread kind of runs through all your videos, though, to some extent.
Yeah.
Like,
and that really wasn't intentional. Like, that just kind of happened without my realizing.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're just talking about stuff that interests you, and the stuff that interests you all happens to be a little bit fucked up. In a good way, positive, parentheses, positive.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, something I wanted to bring up before I looked more into it and we can decide how much we want to talk about it, is Love Exposure.
Oh,
have you seen that movie?
Oh, I've still never seen it.
Well, so first of all, I'll say, as a movie, first time I watched it, hated it. Watched it again recently, I loved it. And
wow, see, I remember you mentioning it when you didn't like it.
Yeah,
I think we had a brief
been through
conversation.
a lot since then, Hazel.
Yeah, yeah.
Like in terms of my media analysis.
We all have.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like 2015. It was an eon ago.
Yeah.
And so the
people couldn't decide how they felt about Zero Suit Samus back then.
Well, even Kill la Kill, and I'm not a trigger. I'm not a Trigger fan, but I do think Kill la Kill is like their best.
I think it kind of de facto has to be one of their best things. And stuff,
at this point.
Yeah.
and we can. That's another tangent, but like the asterisk, I'll put.
Has Trigger come up on every single guest episode we've had? No, it's okay. It's just funny.
I think we narrowly avoided talking about it with Riff last time.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good. Yeah. They're one of those funny studios where they're so polarizing that like even people who are on either side of that polarized sphere about them are still polarized internally about them. That I feel like they always wind up coming up around these things.
Very funny. But yeah, with Love Exposure, I think the important asterisk is that, after watching it and loving it, I was like, I need to read interviews about this shit. I was immediately confronted with the fact that the director has recently had some allegations about mistreating actresses and such.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, that's another element of it. But, as far as my experience watching the movie, like, it's kind of hard to separate it from that, but it was just like, just in terms of like, just for the sake of talking about my experience analyzing film, it's like, watching it the first time, I was just so morally scandalized by so much of it, because panty photography is like a huge element of that movie, and and at the time I just couldn't accept it fictionally, as this this very heightened, like the movie is like a very heightened extreme version of like, how does one like react against kind of sexual repression, Right. And the reason I was specifically scandalized was not because of the panty shots, but because they never really repudiate it in the movie.
Right.
And so I felt like you can't bring up something that's bad in real life and not talk out against it. Is how I felt.
The movie's 4 hours long, so you're just like, man,
you've got plenty of time.
Taking so much time not to do this. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily, I just felt like watching it this time, I just didn't care that much about that question, because it wasn't what the movie was about. Like, the movie is about these two characters who are like, or not two only, but mainly these two characters, and they're like, to me, the panty photography was less about the panty photography and more about how does one come to terms with their own perversion, right? Their own sexual desires. Because most people have some kind of like, maybe not most people, I feel like a lot of people have some type of like weird sexual interest that they're embarrassed about, or even just normal sexual interest, right? Like just the idea of even being like a person attracted sexually to another person can be like a traumatic thing for a lot of people, especially in the movie. There's the very specific Catholic framing. And then on the other hand, you have a character, the female lead, who is like traumatized by men in society very explicitly. And so you kind of have these two forces exploring like, how do you react against this? How do you find your humanity in this crazy world against the backdrop of like cults and religion that are trying to sort of raise you away from your humanity, right?
Right.
And not to spill too many words about it, but my point is that I kind of was able to see through the literal things in that movie.
Yeah.
And instead
right.
of equating them to like moral, like being a pro like moral statement about the good of panty shots, I was able to take it as what it is, or like how I felt watching it was like this thematic kind of exploration of teenage trauma and sexuality and whatnot. And anyway.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is the arc of kind of coming to be more media literate.
Yeah.
Which is like, I think unfortunately there was kind of a while where there wasn't necessarily a lot of room to comfortably explore that aspect of media literacy, right? Like, I think when you're coming into your own as somebody who has a relationship with art, there comes a stage where like you become aware enough to know that the images that you're consuming are not always saying what they're saying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that tends to come in tow with the kind of hypervigilance of, I need to be aware that the thing that I'm consuming isn't telling me something that I don't like or that I'm not comfortable with without my realizing.
Right.
Like, I think there's almost a kind of fear that comes along with that.
Right. That like the evil is going to seep into you if you're not vigilant.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and
Or
think,
even if it's not that like other people will sort of cast aspersions onto you for seeing it as something without flaws, or you know what I mean? Like, I think or just rather like there's that kind of anxiety about being seen as somebody who condones what goes on in these films
right.
and in this art in general.
Yeah, and I think a big part for me of developing that media literacy was just not tweeting anymore.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah,
like
literally.
Like not needing to know what people thought about what I thought about media kind of freed me to develop my own sense of like what's acceptable and what's what's acceptable for me personally without having to even worry about society.
Yeah. I think there also just came a point where naturally I developed an interest in just kind of like the limits of the human imagination and all these different forms. And I think part of that was just like generally informed by my headspace at the time and kind of naturally wanting to seek out things that were more, I don't know, just like transgressive, because it kind of felt, I don't know, it stimulated a part of my brain that needed stimulating.
Yeah.
Same,
basically.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of
Simple
wound
as
up
that.
in working backwards and informing just kind of like my reaction to pretty much everything. Like, I think something important is that like art can be about things that are really important. But at the end of the day, like not every piece of art needs to be as important as the thing that it's talking about or the thing that it represents.
Right.
And that like your reaction to it can very easily be separate from that.
Right.
Which I think is stuff we kind of talked about on an episode previously. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Apologies for treading similar ground.
no, I don't.
I think
the conversation comes out different every time, so it's okay.
I also don't think it's like a one-time thing. I think it's something we kind of circle back to.
Yeah, it's definitely just kind of an undercurrent.
Yeah,
for sure.
This is something, it's a through line, because this podcast is, like guests or not, is kind of just about like art and celebrating it and having fun with it and finding out about cool stuff. I kind of see this podcast as like a sort of podcast older brother or whatever, just showing you cool shit, just like, hey, you ever hear about this band, that kind of thing.
Right, being the older brother that I never had. Well, I did have one, but he was not into like anime or indie rock. Well, a little bit.
Yeah, I
not enough.
I was an oldest sibling, but I was like, I don't know, like growing up like with like pretty much unrestrained internet access as a child. I think I ended up becoming that for like, not that I was like an older brother to my friends, but I ended up becoming the person in my friend group that would like pass around like flash drives to friends and be like, yo, like I found some crazy shit.
That's
and
awesome.
stuff, and you know, check it out.
That's kind of who I've become in my adult life. Like I'm the guy people will turn around to in the office and they'll be like, do you know any anime that's like this? And I'll be like, yes, I can find that for you.
Yeah.
I can name every anime with excellent backgrounds. Just kidding.
I have to say, well, the answer is Tenchi Muyo every time.
Yeah, well,
the
Tenchi Muyo
Muyo.
is excellent.
Yeah.
I've only seen Tenchi in, I don't know if it's Tenchi in Tokyo.
Tenchi in Love.
It's the one with his mom.
Yeah,
where they
Tenchi
like
in
fight in
Love.
space, and that was like
that one has the best backgrounds.
Yeah, and the character art is so good. And
so
like,
good.
And honestly, it was a great story. And I had never seen anything else about Tenchi Muyo, and that movie worked.
Yeah. Yeah, you should watch the movie they made after that, Tenchi in Love 2.
I should. I have the Blu-ray set.
Nice. Yeah, that movie is really insane. I think you'd like it a lot. Oh my god, okay, so this actually reminds me. I've been trying to fucking find this anime that you recommended on Twitter like 5 years ago. It's like a series of shorts. Nobody else had ever talked about it
Tabi
but you.
Machi Late Show?
You literally knew it instantly.
Well, because I was thinking about it recently, because I remade my anime list. And I was like, I'm like the only person I know, except for Zenny, who has also watched Tabi Machi Late Show.
Yeah, I watched it on your recommendation and really loved it.
I love that show. It's one of the first episode, which is about, it's essentially about online friendship and like, you know, miscommunication and like losing touch, etc. You know, it's like one of the first like medias I ever saw that kind of depicted kind of the reality of modern friendship that can involve social media in such a like subtle and sweet way.
Yeah. That whole series has just like such a like a sweet sort of gentle quality to it that I really covet.
Yeah, I think it was written by this musician, which is interesting. Like, it reminds me of Yonkers Come Here. Have you seen that?
No.
It's one of my all-time favorites, a 90s anime movie about a girl with, it's essentially about a girl like coping with her parents' potential divorce. It's like a very slice of life movie, but it's like fun. It's like heavy where it needs to be, but it's not like a downer movie. But she's got a talking dog. Anyway, the point that ties it together is that it was also written by a musician, I believe. And it's fun when it's just, there's just these one-off projects and you can't really track a career from them.
Yeah. Gaichu is like that. To my knowledge, the woman who wrote the screenplay for that movie never did like anything else.
Yeah, it's such a letdown. Like, I mean, on the other hand, it's very cool, like to just have one thing. But it's like the people who made Yonkers Come Here did a bunch of cool stuff, but it's not like a Hosoda film or a Miyazaki film where it's like one director who always does this type of stuff that you can track their career and find more. And same with Tabi Machi Late Show. Like, it's kind of this amalgamation of people at this current place and time that made this one thing that is never replicated again.
Yeah. I think being someone where like I'm getting to a point where I'm kind of looking at my interests and the things that I want to do and the way that they intersect with the thing that I do for a living, which is also an interest of mine. The more I kind of get comfortable with the idea of maybe just kind of having one big thing in me outside of that, you know? Like I find almost a sense of comfort in the fact that can just happen sometimes, that somebody can kind of get it out in one go,
and that it's still like so beautiful and like and like great, like that, like Junkers Come Here is not less because there isn't more.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And that's something. I mean, just to tie it back to Kara's Walk Home a little bit, is like, now I've been sort of coming out of this a little bit recently, but even before we released Look a Rainbow, I kind of had this feeling that like, this is it. Like, this is all I have in me. And like, and like, it's not like it's some huge hit, right? It's not, and I wasn't, and I mean, our first album too, like, it's not like our band is a huge hit, right? It's like, it's got a certain number of people who really love it, but it's not like we're not some huge band. And I was like, but even then it's like, I kind of feel like these two albums, like I put everything into it and that's all I got. Like I wrote everything I could. And
I feel like to a
it.
certain degree, that's almost like kind of like a weird extension of the kind of like creative post-mortem process. Where like you kind of put something out and you just feel utterly fucking drained, just like completely spent, and like you've got nothing left.
Yeah.
But then there's that kind of added difficulty of like, again, like being someone who's like not in your like early 20s and kind of knowing like I've got like a career that I have like stake in, and like this is kind of like this other thing that kind of inherently has to get relegated to just like a smaller part of my life, and kind of grappling with whether or not like you've kind of not even missed your chance or missed your window or anything like that, but just that like would there a time be where this thing really takes off? Like, would it have already? Like that was a lot of the stuff I was thinking about when we made the call to shut down Pop Spirit. Was that kind of like resignation almost, like not even in like a negative sense.
It's kind of like we know what this is now. Like it's had its time, and regardless of how we feel about it, like maybe we're happy with how it went, maybe we're not, but like we know what it is, and we can now make this decision about if we want more or not.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I you first.
Oh no, I was just saying like distance really helps. I don't know. In that respect, I think Pedalfold, with Negatives, we like tried like just spitballing a few things here and there, and it just like nothing was coming together, and we felt like just completely spent. And we've had writing sessions since then and everything, and I think now like it's like okay, like we definitely feel like there's more in us, but it had to take like years, you know, like and like distance, and then people moving, and then people moving back and stuff for us to kind of come together and stuff. I was actually just at like a house party like a week ago, and like most of the band was there. And we all got to talk and actually just like chat and just spitball about stuff. And then, we were basically just like, I think we can probably make it work again.
That's great. That makes me really happy to hear.
That. And I relate to that a bit. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, to kind of tie it back to a much earlier conversation thread, like the first album, I Don't Want to Look at the Stars, I felt like I had so much material. It was very easy to write. Like none of those songs were really like tooth pulls. They more or less all came out, and I don't think there's a single song on Look a Rainbow that was not, where the lyrics at least were not like outrageously difficult. And I'm very happy. I'm very happy with them. Like I'm proud of what came out, but it felt like I think maybe Dragon Bone Smasher was easy. but every other song was like
Yeah.
like so hard, and I was like, if it's this hard and it's only album 2,
Yeah.
like how am I gonna write more in the future? And
Yeah.
and a lot of it
like,
does. Go ahead.
No.
I definitely had that at a few points, even this year, where I am getting more stuff done musically, where it's like sometimes I kind of have to step back and go like, oh my God, is this even a good use of my time if it takes me literally an entire weekend to work out lyrics to go with this vocal melody I've written?
Yeah. And I also I also struggle with using the same chords all the time, which
too,
I don't care if I'm listening to other bands. And even with my band, eventually I just say, fuck it, and use them anyway. But there's definitely this frustration with feeling like I can't come up with something new.
Yeah.
And I can't come up with new music, even if I like the music I'm coming up with, it's not new. And I can't come up with lyrics at all. And so there's this sense of like, am I out? And I do feel like I'm starting to regenerate a bit musically, but it remains to be seen if I'll have more to write about. And and again, with the fiction element, like the background thought that goes into a lot of those songs is relatively substantial. Like there's a whole story for some of these characters that is not in the songs. Like, cause I feel like in order to write these snippets of their life, I need to understand them because I'm writing it from first person.
Yeah, definitely.
So I need to be able to write it almost like I am these people, at least to whatever extent I can. And so, like, if I don't have like the autobio stuff that's ready to go, like the fictional stuff takes a lot of thought. And so I think the reality is it's not that I'm out of ideas, but that the ideas that I want to do, or that I would want to do, are just kind of difficult for me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's all stuff that is validating, and it was validating when we talked a bit about it, just like off the record a few weeks ago, because like I think I might have talked about it here or there in places online, but like I definitely had a few moments last year where I was like, I feel like I just need to stop thinking of myself as a musician, because it's too painful to think of myself as one but be unable to come up with anything.
Yeah, there's the whole identity component of it too. And
right.
And like I felt that kind of strange feeling all year, like, am I done being a musician? Is this
right?
And I had this when I quit doing comics, because when I was in college I was very much like a comics guy. I was like, I've got a web comic, I'm gonna like make my career doing comics. And over time I just kind of lost interest. Like, I love reading comics, but I kind of hate making them. And it's not because it's too hard. Like these days I'm more into like game dev and stuff, and that's certainly not easier than comics. It's just different, very different. And it was just kind of like the process of making them was not fun. And then just kind of losing that aspect of my identity that had been a big part of it was strange. And I don't think it'll but even with that, I made comics again after I had come to terms with not being a comics guy. And even now, I think I'll probably make music again. But there is that kind of evolving relationship that you have with these hobbies or arts or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it was always weird for me because, like, I think I kind of inherently work in phases creatively where certain art forms just draw my attention more than others.
Yeah,
and
that
was
was
certainly the case before my channel had taken off and I was able to make a living off of it, because I was kind of just throwing everything I had at the wall, and then whatever stuck I was gonna just kind of lean into, and that wound up being videos. And thankfully I haven't really like lost my spark with that, but it's definitely harder some days than others to get into a mindset where I actually like have the capacity to work on it because I'm not too occupied by something else that's grabbing me, which is almost like why it was kind of convenient that music just wasn't coming to me throughout 2021.
Yeah, I felt that too because I was getting really into game development. So I was like, you know what?
Right.
Not music anymore. Not into music anymore.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Yeah.
inevitably I would hear a song that got me extremely hyped up and I would want to play and I would start writing and even if it was bad, I never really stopped, you know. I've probably got a recording on my phone from every day of the year.
Yeah.
Because I always pick my guitar up and I'm like, that's kind of nice, and then record it.
Yeah, it's like I lost the calluses on my fingers just because I was so overworked with my day job and so uninspired with music that like I went like months and months without touching an instrument.
That happened to me for a bit, but that was actually when we were recording the album more so than, or not recording, mixing it. Like,
right.
I was so exhausted from recording, and that might be fun to talk about if you're interested.
Absolutely.
And I just like when we were mixing it, like I didn't care about playing anymore. All I cared about was getting the mix right. But can I tell you a bit about the recording, the context of recording it?
Please.
And this gets into a little bit of something that I wanted to mention that you sort of hinted at is or at least the feeling, like you're talking about the pain of losing your identity as a musician, and made me think of the pain of having a band. And this ties into it because I feel like the whole history of Kara's Walk Home has been a challenge to juggle the band with the real lives of all the members. Like, and this is in no way a problem that I have with the members. I'm not. I just mean that like it's a band that existed between our lives, and that's totally fine. But it is like, you know, there is always stuff getting in the way. Like so and so has to go to school. So and so got a job that is always on the weekend, so we can't play weekend shows anymore. Like stuff like that. And then the context of recording the album was we started recording it January or February 2020. Very funny.
Oh, yeah.
Very funny date. If you think about that.
Yeah.
And we were like, the album was not finished being written. I think we had 8 songs and I wanted 10. And I had a couple like still in the oven. And we recorded, luckily we were able to record our like most difficult songs. So we recorded Highway and Gauge Means Nothing. And Impressionism, which I think are our most long and weird songs on the album, or like complicated structurally. So we were able to get those done, and we had time scheduled in like March to record more, and then of course COVID hit. So we took that seriously, and we didn't meet at all as a band until like maybe mid 2021, and we decided not to do any shows when we started practicing again in 2021, and we were just going to focus on learning the new songs at first, and then and that was going well, but we weren't really considering recording just yet, and because it was kind of taking us a while to learn the songs because of scheduling mainly, like people not being able to make it to every practice and whatnot. And so anyway, the main kind of climax of this story that I'm rambling on about is summer 2021 came, and we only had those 3 songs recorded. Oh, plus Goodbye to This and That and You, and most of, what's it called? The song V Sings. I actually don't know how to say it, but the one about her grandpa. And So we had most of that recorded. So we were kind of like 40% of the way with like the raw bass tracks, like 3-piece band. And then, and I was in LA, and my girlfriend got basically hired at a job in Boston. And I was like, and we were like, let's go. But I can't leave Los Angeles. She had to move in September, so it was July when we found out. So she had to move in September, and I was like, I can't leave LA until Kara's Walk Home has 2 albums. Or at least finishes recording. So the plan was we were going to start recording ASAP, figure out when we could record, like finish learning the songs. I had to finish like so many lyrics. There were so many songs that didn't have lyrics yet. Like all the melody was in.
Yeah.
And all the parts were written, but I didn't have lyrics. Like, and I was really struggling with like the lyrics on specifically Do You See the Thread of Light? I wanted to finish by November, but that didn't happen. But eventually I had to like give my notice to the apartment manager, so it was like January 1st I'll be out. So we basically had from July through more like August, September, November to record the album. And in the meantime, I was like packing all my shit up and shipping it to Massachusetts. So it was just like kind of a crazy period.
Yeah,
and like
again, it's validating to hear you explain a lot of this stuff, because like these were conundrums that I also and just like wound up facing with the band that I was in before I moved up here to Washington. Just like kind of reaching that point where it's like the move is inevitable. I'm leaving in this month. We need to figure out what happens in between. Yeah,
and like I hate putting that pressure on my bandmates, you know?
Right.
Like, we are not some, like, professional band that's making money from our music. And so being like, can you guys help me? I feel like I'm asking so much of my friends that, like, we're all doing this on a volunteer basis for fun because we like it. Right. And so, like, deadlines and stuff and, like just wasn't something I felt was generally appropriate, like other than, you know, if we can all agree that this is important, we can agree on a deadline together, like that kind of thing. But you know, everyone pulled it together, and it was amazing. And especially Rob, like putting so much time and effort because Rob recorded and mixed it. And also, he had to do his guitar parts, which he had to do later because he was mostly focused on recording.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. And then he also had to do a lot of the bass parts because V injured her arm, like the tendon in her arm. So she couldn't.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so, and V was like, I have to just say, like, she was amazing. Like, any part I threw at her, she would learn. Like, she learned bass for Kara's Walk Home. And like she practiced so much, she got so good. She could play, you know, downstrokes at 200 BPM. It was amazing. And like,
oh my God.
And her injury was not from bass playing.
Right.
It was just life work injury type thing.
Yeah.
And so Rob had to like learn the parts last minute. That's part of why the bass parts are simpler on some of the songs. It's because I didn't know who was going to play them, so I didn't want to like write these fancy bass parts.
Yeah.
And Rob is a great bass player though. Right. So like he came up with some cool stuff on his own anyway, and whatnot. So like we were juggling that plus the time frame, and essentially it was like William, need to get done everything I have to do before I leave at the very least. And so, like, and the other thing, too, and I'm sorry if this is, like, long and boring, but, like...
no, this is 100%, like what we what we have you here for.
Cool.
This is great. This is shit that I have wondered about, just about like so many bands.
I wonder
love.
too, which is why I want to talk about
yeah.
it. Like,
Right,
what is the
exactly.
context? Like, it's so hard for me.
Yeah.
How do you guys do it? And
Exactly.
The other thing with this deadline is I hadn't sung like a note in a year and a half. Like after 2020, like I wasn't commuting to work anymore, so I wasn't singing in the car. We didn't have weekly practice, so I wasn't singing at practice. I didn't have karaoke because we couldn't go see anyone. And so I was just home alone, not singing. And like this album is intense. Like more screaming than ever. And my throat was like so weak. And so,
okay, that's crazy for me to hear, because in my head, listening to that record, every time I'm like, oh my God, William has gotten so much better since the first record.
I agree that I got better, and that's what was so painful about it. Like, I was like peak in 2021, and like even when as far back as like when we recorded Goodbye, like I think I was like really improving, and I was like really getting like the sound I wanted. And then COVID comes and I can't sing at all. And I had this fear, like, what if I can't scream anymore? Like, what if my voice isn't like I have these aspects of my voice that I finally like, and like, have I lost it? And I put on this record by scarlxrd. Do you know scarlxrd?
No.
He's this rapper, this like, I don't know what the genre is. Like, I'm relatively ignorant about it, but and I don't remember how I found him, but it's kind of like screamo rap. It's like it's a little bit one note, but what that note is fucking cool. And he just has like this full-throated, intense scream. It's like so solid. Like, it's not like a Fry scream. It's not whatever the other kinds of like metal screams are. You know, it's like what I do. It's just yelling. And I was so inspired by it, and I just went out in my car and just like screamed. And I'm not necessarily saying that's what fixed it. Like, in the end, I just had to practice a lot. I went in my car every night, and I apologized for the gas usage, but I had no choice. And I would go out every night for half an hour and just sing the songs until I finally had the stamina. But even then, I was able to get the tone back, but I couldn't really get my stamina back enough as I wish I could. So a lot of those songs took quite a few takes and like days, especially Gauge Means Nothing in the Car. The part at the end where it's like, forget my name, forget my face, etc. I want to start over is so high. And I had such a specific, like, I want my screams to sound a certain way. Like, there's the type of scream that I like, and I have to get it. I didn't want my voice to break and get whistly. I didn't want it to sound weak. Like, it had to sound strong and like a full-throated yell. And so, but some of those notes were just so high, it took a lot of takes and all of practice to get them right. But anyway, in the context, like, I had so little time. Like, I would have liked, at least 6 months to really prepare my voice again, of like weekly practice and singing in the car and stuff. And I was also so worried about ruining my voice. Like, I have to practice hard. I have to yell. But I also stand the chance of permanently ruining my voice. And so there was this fear in my mind of like not even being able to finish the album at all because of that. And so, like, just this limited time coming out of COVID, like, but feeling like if not now, never. Like, this is our last chance to make this album. That's how it felt. And
it's really cool you saying that stuff about worrying about your voice, because I was going through a very similar thing, working on like burned in stuff, especially like after Pedalfold had been kind of gone for a while and stuff. So like I feel like I still feel like my voice's like peak or whatever was around like right when we were finishing recording negatives and stuff, and yeah, like I just had very similar experiences and stuff, like trying to warm back up into using my voice again and being like, man, is it just gone now? Like did I just
scary,
lose it
right?
entirely? And then I go in to do some like a couple takes for Burned In, especially for this most recent single we put out on the last Pop Spirit comp. I was like, is it gone? And luckily it all came out like fine.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Yeah,
And,
it's I feel like the voice is generally speaking more like it bounces back more than you think, but there's definitely like the way that I like to sing is not good for you. Everyone says don't do
Right.
it. But I'm like, I don't give a fuck. This is what I want.
Yeah.
And I mean I do care, but like I have no choice. This is what I want.
Yeah.
And
The
if
way
that
I-
means one day losing my voice, then so be it, you know? Like I'm gonna do
Yeah.
it till
Yeah.
it's gone.
The way I look at it, I definitely like. I just drink enough green tea and stuff like you know, like surrounding the event
Mhm.
of singing and stuff that I'm like, I mean, that's like I'm gonna make it as good as it can be for that and stuff, but I'm still gonna do it the way I want it to sound. And,
Yeah, like I do warm-ups, I do tons of exercises, but I don't sing the way they want you to. But I do everything
Yeah.
else, you know. I think warming up is really important. Practicing in a like don't over practice.
yeah,
Like build up your stamina slowly over time. Like all of that stuff I absolutely agree with and do. But like I'm not gonna do like fake screams.
yeah, particularly with screaming, a lot of the conventional wisdom just produces like really, really fake sounding, like inauthentic screams, and whenever that's like kind of the entire thing you want is something that actually sounds like an emotional outburst.
Yeah, there's no
you kind of
there's no way
have to
around
break
it.
those rules. You have to like it's just. Yeah, I don't know. Like I completely get that because that's something that I think I followed a lot of those conventional wisdoms whenever I was in metal bands in like high school and stuff, but
Mhm.
whenever I started doing my stuff that I've been doing, I've been very dedicated to just like this has to sound human. And so even with the instrumentals and stuff, like we're kind of like really big on just like if the fuck ups sound cool, we're keeping them. Like not like
us too.
Like we don't
Yeah.
we don't want this to sound together and stuff. Like we kind of just want
Yeah.
this to be whatever it is.
Right, like I want it to sound like a live band, you know,
Mhm.
or like a band playing, like struggling even through these songs, and like, and this isn't necessarily even to say that like fry screaming or whatever metal styles are lesser, but just
Right.
specifically for what I'm trying to do, like
Yeah.
I looked up so many videos, like I want to take care of my voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every video was saying, if you want to scream, here's how you do it, and then do something I didn't want. And
Yeah,
so in
yeah.
the end, it
I
was
had
like,
the same thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Eventually, I just kind of realized that, yeah, like I just kind of had to push it as far as it would go. And the closer I came to feeling like I was going to vomit, the closer it sounded to where I wanted it.
Exactly.
And that was a trade off that was
Exactly.
worth having.
Yeah, and you know what? The guy from Eastern Youth and the guy from Gingnang Boyz can still do it. So fuck
Yeah.
it. Like
Yeah, that's true.
and they have the most raw screams.
Yeah.
And the Eastern Youth guy is so old, but he's still fucking
Yeah,
amazing.
dude, that dude is shredding it. It's crazy.
It's and they've just the Eastern Youth aside, I feel like they don't have like full albums that are like incredible, but every single album for their whole career
Mhm.
has like insane songs on them, like insanely good. Like and it's so crazy to be like have been a band for that long and be able to put an album out and like now and have a song that is like a classic.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right, that like stands up to like the stuff you were putting out in like the 90s or whatever. Like, this nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Belt Punch.
Velt Punch. Oh my god, those guys. Now that's a band.
Yeah.
I know the name, but
I'll have to send you some of their stuff.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to get some love on our end of the year podcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other stuff that people probably want to hear about the record. I mean, I guess like it's kind of like a basic thing to the point where like it almost didn't even occur to me until this will sound funny. Like I was looking at the band's Twitter before we recorded, and I saw that you'd posted one of the concepts for the album cover before it was decided, and that was kind of like a funny moment for me where like I was like, oh yeah, I guess it is kind of like funny and cool and significant that you also are able to do all the art for the band in addition to being the songwriter.
Yeah, it's very fun for me.
Yeah.
I had two, or did you have a follow-up?
No. I was just gonna kind of pick your brain about that.
I just think it's really fun.
Yeah.
Like I love album art. I love music.
Yeah.
Being able to like envision that and apply it is like just one of the most satisfying things. And like I made that whole album trailer. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
And like I feel like very few people watched it, but it was so, I felt so fun making that, like putting an image to every song and just like and trying to like convey the feeling that you want an album to have with the art is just like it's just fun. That's the best word for it. And like I had, the first album title, I Don't Want to Look at the Stars, started as a joke because so many of my friends at the time were writing about beaches and the stars and stuff. And this is not, and it was not a dig at them, but it was like, I'm gonna look at the ground. And so I said that as a joke. I don't want to look at the stars because we were just riffing at practice one day trying to figure out the name. And then so the first album, I was like, I want that album art to be facing down. And I also feel like that represented the feeling of the album, of this sense of like groundedness. Like there is nothing up above that will save us. Even if I don't explicitly talk about that, but that's kind of the feeling. It's like here and now, literal things, what's in front of our feet, and like the pain of that, and that like even something beautiful like the stars won't comfort me.
Right.
And or I'll just be bitter if I look at them and see something beautiful, And that's kind of where I was at the time. Not to that extreme, of course. Like I always love looking at a sunset, but I found the extremity of it a bit funny and a bit and also fitting. I kind of enjoy the like extreme, almost ironic negativity sometimes. Not that album doesn't have negativity. I just mean like saying things like the stars and the sunset are ugly is kind of makes me smile a little.
Right.
Yeah.
And on the new album, I felt so far from that sentiment. And not that I can't understand it or relate to it ever, but I felt like I just felt from the start that a bright blue sky was like the main thing I wanted for that album art. Like not a sunset, not the stars, and not the ground, just like daytime. Like pure blue, green grass, and a little sinister smile. And of course that wasn't the only art I had, but it was either going to be something with the big blue sky like that or something kind of evil. Because also I feel like a lot of that album is contending with that darkness, right?
Yeah.
Of humanity. in a way of, but not in like a misanthropic way. And so I wanted to kind of the theme of what we were talking about with like love exposure and other imperfect movies is like, I kind of wanted to reflect that in the album art in some way, because I felt like it was there in the lyrics, in the songs of like, you know, even the petty reasons to live are good enough. Right. That's kind of what that lyric was thinking about. It was like, even if my favorite anime of all time is this weird, fucked up, sexy thing, I don't give a shit. I'm going to enjoy it. And
what is your favorite anime?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hard one.
Okay.
I mean, I said...
I thought that was coming from somewhere, yeah.
Well, it is probably, but...
Yeah.
My favorite animes are all very respectable. And I'm not saying that ironically. It's kind of embarrassing. You know, it's like...
Right, yeah. Like having like a boring favorite, like it pains me to be somebody who enjoys the most arcane bullshit possible and then still be like Perfect Blue and End of Evangelion.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I love ping pong. You know, I love ping pong and Kaiba and Yonkers Come Here and like I love like I love this like literary shit, you know. But you know, I love Lucky Star and I love K-On! And I love like I'm trying to think of something I watched recently that was silly, like Digicart. Yeah, fucking awesome. You know, and it's like it doesn't have to be important to be valuable to you, and I think for like literary important. And I feel like that was kind of a theme of the album. So I was like, I kind of want to do a coy little like evil album cover, right? And so that's why I gave her that little smirk.
I love it so much.
Yeah,
so
she's like, it's kind of like she's there. I'm enjoying my life. The sky is blue. The grass is green. What's your problem?
Was the other concept that you had, Brilliant Blue, is that name a reference to the band Brilliant Green?
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
I loved them as a teenager. I can't say I continued.
I got into them like last year.
Really? That's awesome.
I was really late. Like after I had listened to like all of Tommy February 6's other stuff.
Yeah, Brilliant Green was one of my first like didn't hear it in an anime indie bands from Japan, and that was huge for me. I can't say I kept up with it, but that name always stuck in my mind. So it was a little nod towards that, and I still like that album cover.
Yeah,
I mean album
me too.
Name,
yeah,
and cover. But yeah, Rob, I was like posting them all in the group chat, and like after I'd posted a few more concepts aside from that one, Rob was like, I keep coming back to this one. And I was like, if Rob says so, it's so. And I went with it.
Yeah.
And then Look a Rainbow is just like, I was coming up with so many words.
Yeah.
So many titles. I don't remember any of them off the top of my head, aside from Brilliant Blue, of course. One of them, and I was never going to do this, but I was going to call it evil music to go insane to. But I wouldn't have done that, but I thought it was funny. And yeah, it's literally just a lyric in Dragon Bone Smasher, but that lyric is it always makes me smile because it's based on a real moment where I was driving home from work one day and I was just really in my head about something. Not anything that serious, it was just one of those days where I was like staring at the pavement, like frowning for whatever reason. And then I looked up and there was a rainbow and I just laughed, like just exactly like the song said. And there was just something about that moment that always stuck with me. And so just those kind of moments that juxtapose the negativity with a sort of bemused levity, I find really
definitely
relevant to my life now and a big part of that album. So it felt fitting.
Yeah. I think the Broke choice is naming the album after one of the songs. I think the Wired choice is naming the album after a lyric in one of the songs.
Yeah, especially if it's embedded deep in some song and not the chorus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like if I called it The Moment Is Never Sure or whatever, too obvious.
I've had some album titles rolling around in my head that have all like pushed like a paragraph long. It's really funny. And so,
I love
like,
that shit. Titling is so fun. I honestly find it to be one of the most fun parts.
I kind of like just write down titles, like have nothing attached to them at all.
Yeah,
just to have.
I start songs as a title sometimes.
Yeah,
and like even Highway, the song title, it's really got barely anything to do with the song. There's just a Regal Lily song, another insanely good band.
Yeah,
that's called Highway.
I talked about them in the last episode. Yeah,
oh, awesome. They are like one of they like have the Chatmanchi torch. They're so great.
Yeah. They're like a really beautiful fusion of Chatmanchi and Kinoko Teikoku.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were gonna say. Yeah. But and at the same time, all their own, and they're so great. But they have a song, one of my favorite songs by them on one of their early EPs called Highway, except in Japanese. It's like Kosoku Doro or something like that, which is like high speed road. And it's such a simple title, but somehow I just found it so evocative. That I wanted a song called Highway.
Yeah.
I feel like Impressionism would have been more aptly named Highway because it's literally about it at a certain point. But that song was always called Impressionism.
Yeah.
Because
Was that like the original project file name?
No, the original before it had lyrics, it was called Pop Punk 3.
Yeah. That's how all of mine. I started working on a song the other day, and I literally just named the project file because I went when it asked me what I wanted to save the file as.
That's awesome. Yeah, 90% of my project files are like the band I'm ripping off or the genre I'm trying to do.
Right. Yeah. You'll never know, but
or just the tempo.
But one of the songs on my next album, the project file was just the name of the band that I was. Literally exact same thing.
Yeah. Oh, and so this is a fun little album secret. I guess it's not that much of a secret, but Highway and Gauge Means Nothing in the Car are both used to be one song. And I split them up because I thought it was kind of a bad song, but there were parts of it that I liked, and so I took out. It was one 7-minute song, which is very funny because it became two 9-minute songs.
Yeah. It's like an amoeba. Like they both grew.
They both grew.
Yeah.
It split and grew. So I deleted the part that I thought wasn't working, and the very first part of Gauge Means Nothing, like until it gets. Like it kind of builds up and then gets quiet and like into the minor section.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The first part was part of that original song. The whole ending was not part of it. And then for Highway, a lot of that's new actually. But the like melody that ties them both together, the oh God, I'm sorry. Whatever at the end of the song was part of that original, and when I split it up, I was like, I need this in both of these. Like it's too good, and so like it just worked too well melodically following the sections, and so I kept it. But
love a good reprise. Gotta love.
I also love it, and like thematic leitmotif.
Yeah,
that's
right.
What.
Yeah.
But the original product name, the original file name was Hyadain. You know the musician?
Yes, that's
because
great.
It's not that it sounds like him, but I was really into WWD by Dempogumi. Do you know the song?
No.
It's let me see if I make sure I have the title right. Yeah, Worldwide Dempa, WWD. And it's such a crazy song. And Hyadain in general, like, I feel that his songs are so tightly composed. Like every measure, even like the Nichijou opening, like every measure, every melody, like he changes tempos, he changes genres. But it's so tight and so intentional. I'm like, there's no way he didn't write this in software first.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I was like, I want to do one like that. Like, I've been kind of willy-nilly about my songs. I just compose them at practice. And I want to do one where I write every note for the whole song all the way through really tightly. And so that's why I called it Hyadain. And
that's really cool.
Yeah, so a lot of those, not all the songs, but a lot of the parts in those 2 songs were tabbed out because of that.
I started doing that at first just so that I could remember parts, but then I realized it was way more efficient for and this is something you're going to hear basically nonstop on the next record, is like if a chord progression isn't basically a riff, I get really uncomfortable if it repeats pretty much at all. So like writing everything out in software as I'm writing it with the guitar in hand gives me this really terrible insistence upon being like, okay, well, what if I just take this chord in this cycle and I change it the second time? And then
I do that
I can kind of slot it all around and do that forever. Whereas when I'm playing it on an instrument, like I can kind of get into a groove of playing it in a loop, and I don't really think too much about diversifying it.
Yeah, that's a big reason why I like writing stuff down as well. Like Bad Feelings was also it didn't start written down, but like I really wanted a like noteworthy riff, you know, for that song, for the whole intro section. And so I like had to write it down because I mean, sometimes I'll come up with awesome riffs just improvising over something, but I just like to try different stuff basically, and sometimes I do feel like writing something down in Guitar Pro, which is what I use. Kind of sometimes it makes me too creative, like things get too fancy where it kind of becomes shitty again. But I kind of need it to get over my own memory limitations, because if I'm writing something just jamming, I'll like forget it, or like just do something really repetitive because I can't remember anything else. I always have to write with Logic open, and if I'm not, it's like I worked on a song earlier this year where I had like a bunch of riffs that were all in the same tuning and all in the same key that I just kind of kept coming back to. And then like very slowly I would start to kind of stitch them together really gradually. And then when it came time to actually put it in software, I went like, oh my God, like I don't even know how to notate this. Doing that's such a pain, like notating something you've written already. I hate doing that. But I
mean, like I'm pretty fast when it comes to like writing stuff down, just like in like a piano roll. But in terms of like figuring out like, oh, what the fuck is this time signature? Like this is awful. Like when I'm just kind of playing to feel, it's like a whole other thing. It's not necessarily hard. I just find it really annoying. And something I really hate doing is like getting the whole song structure down. Like it's such a pain to like write out a 10-minute song. It's so boring. But it must be done. Like I need to like, not every time, but a lot of the time. I really have no idea how you do it.
I could talk
songs
about
are either
it a
under
little.
2 minutes or they're 4:30, like on the dime. There's like very little in between.
Well, those are great lengths. For me, I think it just kind of comes naturally for where songwriting started for me, which is when I was a teenager trying to impress my like Berkeley destined older friends, and also listening to a lot of power metal and what's that band? What's that prog band? Dream Theater.
Oh, yeah.
I was really into them, but I was really into this metal band called Sonata Arctica, which I've tweeted about before.
Right. But, I also remember that.
They have some long songs, and I love them because they're long, but they're like fun the whole time. Whereas Dream Theater, I feel like would do this proggy thing where they'd essentially have a 3-minute song, but do like an 8-minute jam solo in the middle.
Yeah.
And I always just really I always just got such a thrill listening to an album and being like, I like this song, and then looking at it and realizing it's the same song I've been listening to from a different different part. I noticed it's literally just that. I find that experience so fun, and so
I actually had that a few times when I listened to Look a Rainbow for the first time.
That's awesome. That's the dream.
Yeah, having that moment of being like, oh my god,
this is
still the same song.
Yeah, but if you're curious about the process, I never think about song length when I'm writing. It's never like, I'm going to make a short song, I'm going to make a long song. Usually, I start pretty much every song with a verse and a chorus.
Yeah.
And then, but oftentimes when I'm playing around on my guitar or my keyboard, I'll come up with like a melody and chords that I like, but I don't really have a place for it. And eventually, if I don't forget about it, I'll be writing some other song, and then I'm like, oh, this part that I had from before would sound so sick here. And then I just stick it in. And so it's a lot of that, a lot of just like Frankensteining pieces of songs together. But
Yeah.
I mean, let me think if I can think of a specific example. Like, I think maybe, what's it called? Do You See the Thread of Light? I think is a fun one to look at because it's not that long, but it's pretty progressive. And so, with that song, I kind of see it as split into 2 halves, but it's really more like 3 parts. And the oldest part of that song is the end of that song, where it's that like slower kind of balladish section.
Yeah.
And that section was always meant to be attached to the end of a faster song. But the first half of it, I could never figure out. Like, it took me so long. It went through so many iterations. And, but the main thing is, I just felt like that ending didn't function on its own. It just felt even though I loved it, like, I really liked that part, I felt like releasing it on its own, it just wasn't enough. And so essentially my idea was, I want a verse chorus pop punk song to go into that section.
Right.
And I kind of had it in the chorus of that pop punk section. It was like a fast pop punk that went into a like halftime beat, which we still have the halftime section, which is the middle part of the song. Like, I want to start when all of this is. That's like it would like drop into that halftime chorus. And it would just was a verse chorus thing. But the verse that I had, I hated it. Like, I couldn't. I liked the vibe, but I could not get a melody I liked. And it felt like it was too long, like it was just dragging. And so one day I was visiting my family in Massachusetts, and as often happens when I'm there, I was just fucking around with guitar in my bedroom, my old childhood bedroom, and I was just strumming a bit, and I strummed out. I was just fucking around. I don't know where the idea came from. I was just playing just to vibe, and the chords for the beginning of that song came out, but it was not there for that song. But I came up with this chord and melody that I really liked. It wasn't exactly how it was in the final, but it was pretty close to it. I didn't have like the rhythm, but it was like this kind of like semi-balladish, but just like a kind of even strum, like quieter acoustic section with those chords and that melody. And I didn't have a place for it though, and it didn't feel like a complete song. But then the light bulb went on. Like, wait a minute, I've got this song that's got it's got a chorus and it's got an ending. What if I stick this on the front and make that the beginning, and it's not even a verse? Like, because I was feeling like going back to the verse from the chorus, for some reason with that chorus, it just didn't feel right. It felt like it was going for too long. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to stick this on the front, just build up and up and up, and build the tension, and then drop into that chorus, and then do the quiet chorus, then do the loud chorus. And then I always wanted to do that like fast part, which in my head was the power metal section. And that's the same chords as the ending of the song. So
I feel like I remember you alluding to a power metal section.
I may have talked to you
out.
about it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I like to like drop those hints of like forthcoming sections, right?
Yeah,
of like the instrument or reminders of old parts. So in the middle of the chorus, the two choruses, there's like an instrumental passage, which is the same chords as the beginning of the song, but a different rhythm. And so there's that memory of that part of the song. And then during the like quote unquote metal section, it's like the precursor to the end of the song. And so that's kind of how it came together. I don't know if that elucidated anything, but
no, I mean, it's just super cool.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's super cool to talk like nuts and bolts songwriting stuff.
Because I think like
I think to hear that stuff.
That notion of like reaching a point with a song where it's like this just isn't enough yet, I think is interesting, because I think for you, and I think for me and Nicky as well, it's less like this isn't something that feels complete to like by like songwriting standards, but more so like this isn't a fully fleshed out idea. Like I haven't seen this through to its conclusion yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe it's evident in the songs, but I really like my songs to kind of have an arc to them.
Yeah.
And so
definitely.
I feel like, you know, it needs that beginning, middle, and end, even if it's not there like in the literary terms, it's there like thematically and musically.
Yeah.
And so and like I love short songs, so it's not at all about like this song is not long enough. It's just that like for whatever reason, the journey to making a complete song for me averages 7 minutes. What can I say?
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I remember when Nicky, when you first listened to the record, you described it as like every song is like a complete journey in and of itself.
Yeah. I actually legit. I remember telling you that. I remember saying like, man, every song on this is like a whole odyssey unto itself.
Yeah, right, an odyssey. Yeah.
And,
I heard that and it made me glow a little.
Yeah, I like. I think it was like. I think I was mainly particularly thinking of like the first like 3 or 4 tracks or whatever. I was like, just every song I'd have another moment where I was like, wow, I'm still listening to the same one. It's there's another cool part. And so like, yeah, it's just great stuff. It's I don't know. It's stuff I want to try out, you know, like myself and stuff, because a lot of my stuff is also similarly like fairly short. But I'd love to just see what it takes to get a 9-minute song out of me.
Yeah,
you know?
it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
And conversely, I really want to try. I've got this concept for a record.
Yeah.
That I want to do, where I want to do like 6 under 2-minute songs and then 1 20-minute song.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if it'll happen because things never come out exactly like you initially planned, but I think it'd be a really fun way to challenge myself to like write both shorter and longer than I ever have.
Yeah, that's something that I think burned in like particularly is like that's like kind of the thing we kind of circle back to a lot of the time, is just that a lot of the ideas we have for that band end up being just like little like it's like a mission mode in like a video game or whatever. It's like we go to this band to write like weird stuff like with weird like rule sets that we wouldn't write for other bands, for our like main bands or whatever, because like those have like a more kind of established thing going on. But with Vernon is like, what if we did a song but did it this way? And it's like, okay, so let's try that.
It's a fun way to work. Like there's this emo band that I really like called I Kill Giants. Do you know them?
Oh, I've heard the name. Yeah.
They're like a Boston area band actually. They're broken up now, but they broke up, and the singer formed People Like You, which is now called Really From, and they're also really good.
I know that band. Yeah, okay.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But I Killed Giants had an album where they did, it was like 6 songs, and they were all like 30 to 40 seconds. And it was just this very specifically intentional exercise of like, we're just going to write these short songs and make them as tight as possible. And I think that kind of thing can be really fun.
Yeah. Super. Like it just, I don't know. It's just stuff I think about a lot and everything is this, how to kind of stretch and contort those things and stuff to try to make something like really cool.
And it's
do you guys know about the parallelism in Sheena Ringo's early records?
I actually don't.
It's fucking insane. Like, I don't understand how she manages to plot that shit out that way.
Huh. So what does it?
I read like an article about it once. Let me see if I can find it and I'll send it to you guys.
Okay.
I think if you just search Sheena Ringo parallel or parallelism, whichever.
The only Sheena Ringo album I'm particularly familiar with is Heisei Fuzoku, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The first song on that album, Gamble, is like, in my opinion, just one of the greatest songs of all time. It's so flawless.
Yeah. It's
also the kind of thing. It's the kind of thing I always dreamed of being able to make.
Yeah.
And songwriting aside, like I just always had these big ambitions of having these like fully like not necessarily orchestrated, but you know, you got your horns, you got your strings, you got all the bells and whistles, like literally, along with your rock band, and like it just sounds so awesome. Like there's ways to do that that's corny, and there's ways to do that that's awesome, and she made it awesome.
Yeah, she's definitely one of my biggest influences for sure, just in terms of like I mean, just fucking everything. I think she's just a monster of a songwriter.
Yeah.
And the way those songs get fleshed out and get so fully realized, like I really hope I can do some stuff like that at some point somewhere in my career.
Yeah.
As an aside, I couldn't find the article, even Google searching it, so maybe it doesn't exist anymore. Oh well.
It got memory hold or whatever.
Yeah.
Gosh. We've been going for like 2.5 hours almost.
I feel like
we could go on more, but I feel like I should probably get going soon and everything. But it's been,
well, all that means is a perfect opportunity for us to have you on again later, William.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, please. That would be fun.
Yeah, you are welcome back anytime. We had like just it was such a great time talking to you. I think this is the most we've ever talked about music on any podcast we've ever done.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
awesome. I was thinking about that too, because I was like, we strayed from music. Like we were straying from it so much, and I was like, this is awesome, but it is not music. So I'm glad you feel we talked about it quite a bit.
Oh yeah, no,
definitely.
Like we usually like we'll hit it for like a few minutes, and then we're just like, okay, well anyway, it's time to talk about some comics or whatever for an hour. But yeah, it's great. If you want to like tell people, like, I don't know, like your Twitter @ or whatever, or whatever.
Yeah, if you want to send me whatever relevant links you want me to relevantly link to other to the show, I can.
Yeah. All I've got is the Kara's Walk Home Twitter. And karaswalkhome.mortgage, that'll get you to our Bandcamp.
Oh, that is a really good, like, .mortgage is really funny. Okay. I love that.
Thank you. I love to hold joke URLs. Go on, sorry.
I was on the band, and I found out that or like I saw that it linked to your Instagram, and I clicked on that, and then I saw that you have your personal website is unitedstates2.com.
Yes, it is. That's my portfolio. So for art.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah, like
awesome.
I said, I like to just. I had a phase where I just really liked collecting URLs. I think yoshistory.com also goes to the Bandcamp. But I had United States 2 I just had it, and when I made my
Oh my
portfolio,
god, it does. Yeah.
nice. When I made my portfolio, they ask if you have like a link, like a custom link that you wanna
Right.
put to it, and I was like, well, I already have this, and I don't really care. I don't really care about making it my real name because I'm only really sending this to job applications, so it's not like Google searchable. It's not Google. What do you call it? The searchability doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The SEO.
The SEO, yeah. So I was like, this is funny. Let's do it.
But yeah, thank you so much for being on. I really, really appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
It's great. I always feel like whenever you and I have talked about music in the past, I've always felt very understood creatively.
Yeah.
Which means a lot.
Likewise. It's very fun. I love talking about this stuff in the anime too, and all the other shit we talked about.
Yeah.
I honestly don't in my everyday life talk about like the process of making music that much. So
right.
It's nice to get it out.
Yeah, I always feel a little self-indulgent if I'm just doing it myself.
Me too. Again, which is why I don't tweet about it. You know, I've had all this stuff in my head, and I've been. Oh, this is maybe a last story to end on is we were supposed to go on William from Glass Beach's listen along show for months now, but it keeps getting rescheduled for various reasons.
So we got to you first.
You did actually, even though they reached out to us in July, and this is no shade on them at all. Life just gets in the way. But as a result, I've just like the whole time I've been like, I will have a venue to speak about the album, and then it just never came, and so I've just been and again, it feels so self-indulgent, but at the same time, it's just fun. What can I say? But I don't want to tweet about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I appreciate you allowing me or inviting me on to chat about it and
anytime
go on our tangents.
Yeah. So thanks so much. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening. Go listen to the new record if you haven't already. It's one of my favorites of this year, which means I'm going to have to confront how to factor in the fact that I've known William for so long in my decision for album of the year.
Our deliberation.
Ethics in podcasting is going to be.
I won't take it personally wherever you rank it. So at the very least, don't feel pressured.
If you have
on my account.
Yeah, I remember one time I posted my my top topsters, top albums or whatever. This was ages ago. And I remember not even thinking about the fact that I had put I Don't Want to Look at the Stars on there. And then Rob replied to me and was like, oh my God, you ranked us higher than Loveless by My Bloody Valentine.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like to imagine, if you have an album and you've been a guest on this podcast, imagine your jersey is up in the rafters,
right?
You're in a Hall of Fame.
It's like Guy Fieri,
exactly.
One of the tiles,
right?
Of the
restaurant. It's like we're a restaurant and stuff, and you took a picture with our mascot or whatever. So
right, yeah,
that's right. Yeah, the Carousel Welcome jersey. Oh, that reminds me. I'm sorry for all the last tangents, but because of American soccer and Los Campesinos also did this where they put out a soccer jersey. I really wanted to do that, and I even made designs for it, but we never printed it.
Damn, yeah. Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. I was actually thinking, my girlfriend told me about, she was listening to a podcast where they interviewed these people who are record archivists, and they'll go and find rare records or random records that are relatively undocumented and research them and find out who made them and stuff and interview them if they're available. And it made me feel now I kind of want to make a vinyl.
Just to lead some places so that
just to have like physical evidence of the band somewhere.
Yeah.
And like
right,
not for any sense of like needing acknowledgement or whatever, but more for the archivist.
No,
you know?
yeah.
My respect for archivists.
Yeah, that's actually something, you know, like, yeah, I've had this kind of drive to have a physical version of my music as well at some point, because like, yeah, I just want to be able to hold something and be like, this is, I made this, you know.
Yeah, and I really never cared that much in the past, because I don't know, I'm very much a like the work is the work type of person. Even with my comics, like I like to make it. I don't like to advertise it. I don't like to print it, right? I like to just make the work. And that's not in any way like a valuation on like the post work stuff you have to do. It's just like my habit. But I do like that idea of like leaving something behind physically.
Yeah.
So, and I just never thought about it until that point. So maybe one day.
It was always kind of a funny thing for me, because like I was really disinterested in doing physicals for a long time. Just because like, I don't know, like I do this really annoying thing where like I kind of have a sense of like, if I do anything, like I don't, it felt too self-important for me to make tapes for my album, you know, or whatever physical media. It felt too self-important, even though literally I've never thought that about any other artist in fucking history.
And I feel so much joy, like finding random obscure shit. Like I randomly, like a few months ago, bought a physical copy of the Gauge Means Nothing record, just because I was name searching Gauge Means Nothing on Twitter because no one talks about them. So I was just like, is there anyone out there? Please. I want to see people talk about this band. And then I saw someone selling it and then I bought it. And it's just like, I love that kind of thing. And the idea of someone coming across some random record in like a bargain bin. Like that's awesome.
I also think there's something kind of in the air in regards to that stuff with archival and stuff with like all that shit that was happening with like HBO Max and those Cartoon Network shows, and like
that's true, yeah.
And like, you know, just thinking about like for music, like, you know, what if Spotify or fucking Bandcamp, who is now owned by Epic Games also, by the way, instead of like if either one of those got the bug up their ass to just like throw out a whole bunch of shit, you know? So like, oh no, maybe it's good to have like kind of backup copies of things, and
just something independent of servers.
Exactly.
The big thing for me in finally deciding to do tapes was that I got nostalgic for when I did tapes for Thor, because I had fun packaging up all the tapes to ship.
Yeah,
it's kind of a busy work that I found fun.
Yeah, we've had so many people reach out to us to help with tapes too, but I always drop the ball. Or like most of the time it's people I don't know at all, so I'm like, I appreciate your interest, but I'm like,
yeah, that actually is kind of funny lore now that I'm thinking about it. Not to also continue dragging it out, but I remember I did reach out to you guys about hopping on Pop Spirit once upon a time.
Yeah, well, we on principle always stayed away from labels because
right call.
Yeah, I've just seen too many implosions, and I don't like to be a part of it, you know. I like to be
that was literally why I made Pop Spirit, was because I didn't want to do literally any, like, I didn't want to work with people I didn't know.
And so I was just happy to, like, I love the idea of working with friends. It's not at all about that, but I just the kind of social hygiene of working alone, I guess, for lack of a better word.
I feel really, really similarly. I find that I'm almost like probably more hesitant than is necessary about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, us just obviously because, too. We haven't done anything with anyone else except play shows with them.
Right. I find that, like, I don't know, like you said, like there's just like a lot of kind kind of volatility in the air in a lot of music communities, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially when you're
And,
younger, you know, like we're
exactly.
older now, and maybe it would be more stable, but like
Yeah.
the volatility of the life of a 23-year-old is like,
Yeah, exactly.
let me be volatile over here on my own.
Yeah,
where I can
exactly.
contain it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and also not get caught up in anybody else's collateral damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's been a good one. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
for
sorry
listening.
for dragging it out.
No.
I did a salute for some reason.
A salute. You saluted.
I saluted our listeners. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.